"You're not white enough to be the lead." That was the harsh verdict repeatedly delivered to Wentworth Miller, the star of Prison Break, in the early 2000s. But his struggle was more than a personal rejection. It was a window into a century-long system in Hollywood designed to erase heritage and rewrite identities. Hollywood has long been obsessed with skin tone, molding actors into flawless, marketable images while hiding the truth of their ancestry. Even legends like Clark Gable reportedly saw studios spend vast sums to erase his multiracial roots, all to craft the picture-perfect image of the ideal American man. These pressures created heartbreaking contradictions, icons afraid to reveal their true complexion, while pioneers like Hattie McDaniel could win an Oscar but still be forced to sit at the kitchen table. The stories of these stars reveal the cost of fame in an industry where identity could be sanitized for profit. From the hidden struggles of leading men to the silenced heritage of celebrated women, Hollywood's obsession with appearances often demanded that talent be reshaped, filtered, and masked. In this series, we'll uncover the hidden histories of 10 stars, who were pressured to conceal their true selves in exchange for success, secrets they once swore would never see the light of day. These are tales of courage, defiance, and the relentless pursuit of authenticity in the face of a system that sought to erase it. Subscribe now as we pull back the velvet curtain and reveal the buried truths of Hollywood's golden, and sometimes brutal, era. Number 1. Dwayne Johnson. Before he became one of the biggest global box office stars, Dwayne Johnson entered the spotlight under a carefully manufactured identity. In 1996, at Madison Square Garden, he debuted in WWE as Rocky Maivia, smiling, polished, and positioned as the perfect, marketable hero. Behind that debut, however, was a subtle industry calculation. Executives promoted his Polynesian heritage while downplaying the legacy of his black father, Rocky Johnson. At the time, entertainment executives feared that openly embracing a fully multiracial identity might limit mass appeal in conservative markets. But audiences reacted harshly. The chants of rejection were loud and humiliating. Cultural observers later argued that fans sensed something artificial, an identity trimmed to fit a corporate mold. Instead of quietly accepting the packaging, Johnson made a bold pivot. He dropped the name Rocky Maivia and reintroduced himself as The Rock, a persona that embraced intensity, charisma, and authenticity. In interviews, he spoke openly about his father's role in paving the way for black wrestlers. That public acknowledgement was more than family pride. It was a rejection of silent whitewashing. Over time, the industry adjusted. Major publications stopped describing him vaguely and began recognizing him as a leading man of color who could dominate the global box office. Number 2, Mariah Carey. In the early 1990s, Mariah Carey's voice was undeniable. It was powerful, emotional, and rooted in gospel and soul traditions. But behind the scenes at Columbia Records, executives weren't just developing an artist, they were managing an image. Rather than presenting her as a proudly multiracial woman with a black father and Irish-American mother, the industry packaged her as a racially safe pop princess designed to appeal to the broadest possible audience. Press releases rarely mentioned her father, Alfred Roy Carey. Interviews avoided conversations about race. Album covers and promotional images appeared, carefully styled to soften or lighten her look. Her curls were often transformed into flowing golden waves. The goal was subtle but strategic. Protect profits by minimizing anything that might unsettle conservative markets. At the center of this tightly controlled brand was Tommy Mottola, the powerful head of her label and later her husband. According to Mariah's own memoir, she felt creatively restricted. Collaborations with hip-hop artists, the very culture that reflected her deeper musical roots, were discouraged. Urban influence, executives feared, would complicate the image they had carefully constructed. The shift came when Mariah decided to break free, embracing hip-hop collaborations and shedding the polished America's sweetheart persona. She stepped into a more authentic expression of herself. Ironically, the same media that once ignored her black heritage suddenly focused intensely on it, rebranding her as an urban diva. Number 3, Clark Gable. During Hollywood's golden age, Clark Gable was crowned the King of Hollywood. With his sharp mustache, commanding screen presence, and unforgettable performance in Gone with the Wind, He became the embodiment of the ideal American leading man. But behind that carefully maintained image lay persistent whispers about his ancestry. Rumors that studios allegedly worked hard to suppress. In the 1930s, the studio system functioned like a fortress. A star's background was not considered personal history. It was commercial property. Any detail that threatened box office appeal was either buried or rewritten. Allegations circulated that MGM went to great lengths to protect Gable's public image, especially in an era dominated by Jim Crow segregation laws. A leading man associated with non-white ancestry, even through rumor, could have faced severe backlash in certain regions of the country. Yet Gable's actions sometimes hinted at deeper complexity. On the set of Gone with the Wind, 1939, when he learned that segregation policies required separate facilities for black cast members, he reportedly objected strongly. He supported his co-star Hattie McDaniel and challenged discriminatory treatment. For a white star at the peak of his fame, that stance carried risk. Whether motivated by empathy, personal conviction, or something more personal, his defiance stood out in a rigid era. Despite the studio's efforts to preserve a flawless image, tabloids occasionally used vague phrases like exotic look, fueling speculation without proof. Gable's story reflects the power of the old studio system, a time when image was everything, and heritage could be treated as a liability. He remained a cinematic legend until his death in 1960, but his legacy also symbolizes how tightly controlled identity once was in Hollywood. Even kings, it seemed, wore carefully guarded masks. Number 4, Hattie McDaniel. In 1940, Hollywood made history and exposed its deepest contradiction at the same time. Hattie McDaniel became the first black performer to win an Academy Award for her role as Mammy in Gone with the Wind. It was a groundbreaking achievement, a moment that should have symbolized pure triumph. Instead, it revealed the limits of acceptance in a segregated industry. At the Oscars ceremony held at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, McDaniel was not allowed to sit with her co-stars. Due to segregation policies, she was placed at a small table near the back of the room, separated from the white cast members she had worked alongside. She entered through a side entrance. Hollywood celebrated her talent on stage, but maintained racial barriers off it. Throughout her career, McDaniel appeared in more than 300 films, yet the vast majority of her roles were confined to maids or domestic workers. The studio system repeatedly typecast her, shaping her public image into something considered acceptable for mainstream audiences at the time. When criticized by members of the black community for accepting such roles, she famously responded, "I'd rather play a maid for $700 than be one for $7." It was not surrender. It was survival within a limited system. Even after her passing, obstacles followed her legacy. She had hoped to be buried in Hollywood Forever Cemetery, but racial restrictions denied her request. For years, even her Oscar statuette's whereabouts became uncertain. Hattie McDaniel's story is one of brilliance constrained by discrimination. She opened doors that had long been sealed shut, yet was never fully welcomed inside. Her Oscar was more than an award. It was proof of talent that thrived despite exclusion. Her legacy stands as both a milestone and a reminder of the price paid to achieve it. Number 5, Fredi Washington. In the 1930s, Hollywood saw enormous commercial potential in Fredi Washington. She possessed striking features, light skin, and green eyes, attributes that studio executives believed could be molded into mainstream stardom. But that opportunity came with a condition. To secure leading roles and major contracts, she would need to distance herself from her black heritage and adopt a more European identity. At the time, the practice of passing, presenting oneself as white to gain social or professional advantage, was a painful reality in American society. For Washington, the pressure was direct and unapologetic. Executives reportedly suggested that with a name change and a carefully crafted backstory, she could rise to the top tier of Hollywood fame. She refused. Rather than deny her ancestry or disown her mother, Washington chose integrity over career advancement. That decision significantly limited her opportunities in mainstream cinema. Hollywood struggled to categorize her. She was considered too light-skinned for the narrow roles typically offered to black actresses, yet the industry was unwilling to promote her openly as a black leading lady. Ironically, her most famous role came in the 1934 film Imitation of Life, where she portrayed a light-skinned black woman who chooses to pass as white, rejecting her mother in the process. The storyline mirrored the very choice Washington had rejected in real life. On screen, the character's decision led to emotional tragedy. Off-screen, Washington's refusal led to professional consequences. Instead of chasing stardom under false pretenses, she later dedicated herself to activism and advocacy for black artists. Her legacy is not defined by the roles she lost, but by the identity she preserved. In an era when survival often meant silence or disguise, Fredi Washington chose truth, even when Hollywood turned away. Number 6. J. Edgar Hoover. For nearly half a century, J. Edgar Hoover stood as one of the most powerful figures in American history. As the longtime director of the FBI, he built an empire of surveillance files capable of destroying careers, silencing politicians, and intimidating public figures. His authority extended into Hollywood, Washington, and beyond. Yet alongside his immense power existed persistent rumors about his own ancestry, whispers that reflected America's deep obsession with racial lineage. According to later researchers and authors, speculation circulated that Hoover may have had African ancestry in his family tree. In a nation shaped by the one-drop rule, even the suggestion of non-white heritage could damage a public figure's standing among elite circles during that era. Whether the claims were factual or exaggerated, the rumors themselves reveal the racial anxieties embedded in American society at the time. Hoover was known for his aggressive stance against civil rights leaders, most notably his surveillance and harassment campaigns targeting activists such as Martin Luther King Jr. Some analysts later interpreted this hostility as symbolic of broader institutional resistance to racial equality. Others suggested psychological motivations tied to identity insecurity, though such interpretations remain speculative. What is clear is that Hoover carefully controlled information about others and about himself. His FBI maintained extensive files on celebrities, politicians, and cultural icons, creating an atmosphere of fear and silence. Few dared challenge him publicly. Hoover died in 1972, leaving behind a legacy defined by both institutional expansion and controversy. His story, within the broader theme of image and identity, highlights how power structures often intersected with racial politics in 20th century America. In an era obsessed with ancestry and appearance, even the most powerful man in the room was not immune to the weight of perception and rumor. Number 7. Tom Jones. When Tom Jones first captivated audiences in the 1960s, his voice defied expectations. Deep, soulful, and full of raw emotion, it echoed the sounds typically associated with black artists from the American South. Radio listeners in Detroit, Chicago, and beyond assumed they were hearing a black singer, yet when he appeared on stage with tanned skin, curly hair, and the appearance of a Welsh performer, many were shocked. This paradox became a defining feature of his career. Jones's unusual combination of vocal talent and ambiguous appearance made him a unique commodity. Industry executives quickly recognized the commercial potential of this racial ambiguity. A performer who could deliver the intensity of soul music while remaining a safe figure for mainstream white audiences. In essence, Hollywood and music moguls commodified the emotional depth of black music, packaging it in a body and face that society could comfortably accept. Jones never tried to hide his heritage, nor did he claim to be something he was not. Yet the public perception of his racial identity became part of his mystique. Critics, fans, and media outlets debated and speculated about him for decades, while he continued performing with the same authenticity that first drew attention. Throughout his career, Jones collaborated with legendary black artists, including Aretha Franklin, celebrating the music without needing to correct assumptions about his background. By doing so, he demonstrated that talent transcends appearance. Tom Jones's story is a striking example of how the entertainment industry has historically manipulated race to maximize profit while audiences consume art. His life reminds us that identity in entertainment can be simultaneously flexible and misunderstood, and that sometimes the voice alone tells a truth no image can contain. Number 8. Wentworth Miller. When Wentworth Miller rose to fame with Prison Break, audiences were captivated by his intense blue eyes, pale complexion, and charismatic presence. Yet behind the camera, Miller faced an insidious form of erasure. Hollywood repeatedly told him, "You're not white enough to be the lead," reflecting a system that prioritized marketable images over authentic identities. Born to a black father and a white mother, Miller's multiracial background was seen as a complication rather than an asset. Editors, photographers, and media outlets often employed lighting adjustments, post-production techniques, and image manipulation to bleach his appearance, creating the safe, standardized look expected for a television star. The result was a public persona that often felt alien to Miller himself. This enforced visual manipulation took a personal toll. In interviews, Miller described the disorienting experience of seeing his own image transformed beyond recognition, a version of himself sanitized for mass appeal. The pressure to conform extended beyond appearance. Hollywood's skepticism toward his racial identity created an environment in which speaking openly about heritage risked being dismissed or misrepresented. Despite these challenges, Miller gradually reclaimed his narrative. He openly acknowledged his multiracial background and later spoke about the mental health struggles and pressures he endured as a consequence of the industry's erasure tactics. His journey highlighted a broader systemic issue, that even a leading actor's identity could be commodified, sanitized, and manipulated to fit profit-driven molds. Wentworth Miller's story is a testament to resilience. By refusing to allow industry filters to define him, he underscored a critical truth. Identity cannot be erased, lightened, or altered for the sake of commercial acceptance. Even in the harsh spotlight of Hollywood, authenticity eventually demands recognition. Number 9. Vin Diesel. Before becoming the global star of the Fast and Furious franchise, Vin Diesel faced a unique struggle in Hollywood. He didn't fit neatly into any racial category. With tanned skin, a deep voice, and features that defied stereotypical classification, casting directors often didn't know how to label him. He wasn't white enough for traditional leading roles, nor did he fit the narrow roles historically offered to black actors. This ambiguity created a professional deadlock, limiting his opportunities in the early 1990s. Rather than waiting for recognition, Diesel took control of his own narrative. He spent $3,000 of his own money to write, direct, and star in a short film titled Multifacial, a semi-autobiographical project that showcased the challenges of multiracial identity in auditions and Hollywood culture. The film depicted a young man navigating racial expectations, shifting accents, and the pressure to fit predetermined categories, a reflection of Diesel's personal journey. The short film caught the attention of Steven Spielberg, who specifically wrote the role of Private Caparzo in Saving Private Ryan for Diesel. This marked a turning point, as Hollywood began to see his ambiguity not as a limitation, but as a unique strength. Diesel's rise demonstrated that audiences could connect with talent that didn't fit neatly into racial boxes. He transformed what was once considered a flaw into a brand. His ambiguous appearance became a signature aspect of his persona, a man whose heritage could not be easily defined, yet whose presence commanded global attention. Vin Diesel's journey reflects the power of self-determination. When the system fails to provide space, he created his own path and, in doing so, redefined the rules of inclusion for multiracial actors in Hollywood. Number 10. Carol Channing. From her earliest days, Carol Channing carried a secret that would shape her life and career. At just 16, her mother revealed that her father was a multiracial black man, a revelation that, in segregated America, could have ended her aspirations in the performing arts before they began. Faced with a society unready to embrace her full heritage, Channing made a lifelong choice: to adopt a platinum mask that would allow her to survive and succeed on stage. For over 50 years, Channing maintained this carefully curated image. Her signature platinum hair and heavy makeup became inseparable from her public persona. She avoided the sun, ensured that her skin tone appeared consistent under stage lighting, and never revealed the true complexity of her ancestry. This meticulous self-presentation enabled her to star in legendary Broadway musicals such as Hello, Dolly, and become one of the most celebrated stage performers of her era. The decision came with personal cost. While she dazzled audiences with her larger-than-life performances, Channing carried the anxiety of concealment, a constant awareness that a single slip could expose the heritage she had worked so hard to hide. Her public image was flawless, but it was also a product of compromise and survival in a racially restrictive entertainment world. It wasn't until she turned 81 in her memoir Just Lucky, I Guess, that Channing revealed the truth. For decades, she had lived and performed as the idealized, racially acceptable star, sacrificing full authenticity for opportunity. Her story is both inspiring and tragic, illustrating the harsh realities of an era in which talent and identity often clashed, and showing how the pursuit of art sometimes required the erasure of self.